Hey, in this video I'll explain why I think Komari has a real chance of becoming the final girl. I've seen a lot of opinions suggesting that Komari fits well with the main character, but some might say that
The game was rigged from the start.
while Yanami's agenda is strong and has a lot of followers, Komari fans shouldn't lose hope just yet. I'll show how Komari stands out from the other girls and which factors could influence Nukumizu's decision in the future. The video will be divided into two parts. In the first, I'll go over events from the anime as well as scenes removed from the show but included in the light novel. In the second, I'll cover events from the volumes 4, 5, 6 and 7. I'll start with the less significant arguments and build up to the more crucial ones. Unfortunately, the most important points will be in the spoiler section. I'll try to stick to the story outline and events essential for context. This probably won't spoil your enjoyment of a possible second season, if it ever comes out, and might even encourage you to read the light novel, but whether you want to keep watching is entirely up to you. Nukumizu and Komari have a lot in common. Both of them are avid readers who genuinely love books. While this isn't immediately obvious in the anime, they enjoy discussing literature and showing their favorite genres. Nukumizu grows to respect Komari, especially after she writes "Everyone has to know the engagement is voided" and earns a spot in the top 10 of the ranking. They often read each other's work and exchange feedback, but their connection isn't limited to a shared love of writing. They also frequently meet up to enjoy fountain water together. Nukumizu can even identify which fountain Komari drank from at a given time. He was also more interested in catching crabs with Komari than taking pictures with Yanami. Now, I'm not suggesting that shared interests are the ultimate key to winning the protagonist's heart. However, it's worth noting that Komari stands out in this regard. Yanami is most passionate about food, while Yaku's life revolves around running. While there are plenty of moments where Nukumizu engages with their interests, he does so mainly for their sake. His interactions with Yanami and Yaku make him more conscious about food and running, but it's his shared interests with Komari that lead to them spending more and more time together. It's not something that jumps out immediately, but it's an undeniable fact. Something even Nukumizu himself acknowledges. Yanami and I barely have any interactions in the classroom. I'm with Komari during club activities. I tend to see the latter more often on the emergency stairs during lunch too. It wasn't until I read this passage that I truly realized how Nukumizu's daily routine looks. Yanami doesn't attend the club every day, and Lemon only shows up occasionally. For the most part, it's just Nukumizu and Komari. Although they weren't particularly friendly at first, Nukumizu learned to communicate with her and respond appropriately to her behavior. This process has often been compared to taming a shy animal. Initially, he would buy milk for her, then try to encourage her to start conversations. Gradually, he even helped her feel more at ease around visitors to the club. We are introduced to Komari as a timid, shy girl with social anxiety. However, it quickly becomes apparent that out of all the characters, she is the most brave. She is the only losing heroine who openly confesses her feeling to the president, fully prepared to face the consequences, and she had a lot to lose. She risked her friendship with Koto and the president, not knowing how they would react, or whether she might be forced to leave the club if things went wrong. This reveals another aspect of Komari's personality, her determination. When she truly wants something, she doesn't shy away from reaching for it. This trait becomes increasingly apparent as the story progresses. It works in her favor because she is willing to take action without worrying about what Yanami, Yaku, or even Nukumizu might do. This aligns well with her growing social skills, although I delve deeper into that in the spoiler section. If I had to pick one main character that Nukumizu finds the least attractive, it would be Komari. That's the impression I got while reading. With Yanami and Yakucho, there are plenty of moments where their looks are praised, and this even extends to supporting characters like Basori and Shikiya. Komari, however, falls short in this area. What makes her stand out instead is how often Nukumizu remarks on her innocence, cuteness, and how smart she is, similar to Kazuo. However, this doesn't necessarily cast Komari in a favorable light, as Nukumizu might not even consider her as a potential romantic partner. Komari herself seems to be aware of this. After the festival, it becomes clear that she is trying to approach her relationship with Nukumizu in a way that is different from the other girls. I find myself holding back more and more when it comes to discussing details, as most of the intriguing developments refer to events that haven't been animated yet. Someone might ask, but what about Komari's final storyline in the anime? You didn't talk about it. Sure, it does show Nukumizu taking the initiative to help Komari. He even declares that he'll stay with her forever. But in my opinion, while this moment is important for their relationship, the festival events don't hold as much significance. It's a storyline similar to Yanami and Yakucho arcs, allowing all the heroines to close old chapters so they can start new ones. Nukumizu plays an active role in each of these arcs, so I won't waste time comparing them in detail. Komari's determination becomes evident right after the festival, where we learn she is reading a rather intriguing book titled "A book that makes a person who won't go a step beyond being your friend care about you hopelessly." When Nukumizu discovers this, Komari hastily hides the book to ensure he doesn't find out about her notes within it. This suggests she actively trying to figure out ways to reduce the emotional distance between her and Nukumizu. It also hints at the kind of relationship Komari envisioned with him, which appears to lean towards a romantic one. This stands in contrast to Yakucho, whose feelings become clearer later, and Yanami, who still seems unsure how to approach her connections with Nukumizu. Yanami in particular behaves like a classic gatekeeper, attempting to prevent other girls from getting closer to the protagonist, while occasionally testing whether Nukumizu might harbor feelings for her. A great illustration of this dynamic is the Valentine's Day events. The girls were supposed to prepare chocolates for guests, but meet beforehand to test them. Yakucho chocolates were unsuccessful, tasting pretty bad, while Yanami created a massive difficult-to-eat chocolate sphere. Later that day, she sneakily shared chocolate with Nukumizu, claiming they were store-bought. However, evidence strongly suggests that she had made them at Karen's house alongside the chocolate sphere. Meanwhile, Komari took a completely different approach. She invited herself over to Nukumizu's house the day before and, dressed in the maid outfit, made chocolates with Kazuo. She ended the day by giving him the only heart-shaped chocolate as he walked her to the train station. This scene underscores Komari's straightforwardness. She is uninterested in playing games and instead approaches matters directly. Knowing she has the best baking skills among the group, she uses them to her advantage. A similar situation arises during Nukumizu's birthday. Yakucho gives him a protein bar with "Happy Bazude" written on it. As for Yanami, the situation is unnecessarily complicated. She prepared a personalized pen but mistakenly had her own name engraved on it instead of Nukumizu's. When Nukumizu said it was no big deal and he could scratch it off, Yanami got upset and took the pen back. Whether it was an actual mistake or an intentional setup to check a reaction from Nukumizu remains unclear. In stark contrast, Komari just gave Nukumizu a handmade bookmark, surprising him and genuinely making him happy. This sincerity from Komari ties into another emerging trait: her growing protectiveness toward Nukumizu. Despite occasional jealousy, which can make her act cruelly, she understands that Nukumizu's interactions with other girls stem from his altruistic nature. She also realizes that he sometimes helps others at his own expense. As a result, Komari decides to protect and support him, much like he supported her during the festival. The desire to assist and shield him sets her apart from the other heroines. While Yanami and Yakushio seem to want Nukumizu for themselves, Komari wants to be there for Nukumizu. This protective side is beautifully showcased in Volume 7. Although Komari takes a backseat in much of the story, she consistently finds a way to support Nukumizu. The climactic moment comes during an escape sequence where Nukumizu and Riko find themselves cornered and Komari unexpectedly shows up to save the day. However, for me, the more important scene happens in Volume 6, when Komari tends to a wounded Nukumizu. Sorry, the blood must have gotten on your handkerchief, right? Don't worry about it. Komari said that while holding my hand before falling silent. Komari? You always worry about other too much, Nukumizu. Komari opened and closed her dry lips repeatedly before finally speaking. So, that's why it's time for me to worry about you too. She fell silent again. Oh, sure. Komari nodded and let go of my hand without a word. I traced the texture of the band-aid on my fingertip as I watched her ride away on her bicycle without saying anything more. Nukumizu brushes off the situation, attributing his injury to fixing the chain on Komari's bike. However, the significance lies in Komari's actions and words. This moment encapsulates her growing desire to care for him. Why doesn't Komari confess her feelings now? The answer lies in a common issue shared by all the main heroines: uncertainty about their emotions. Each of them denies having romantic feelings for Nukumizu, even if there are clear signs to the contrary. Komari, for instance, tells Lemon that she doesn't like Nukumizu in that way, describing her feelings as fundamentally different from those she had for Tamaki. When we was Tamaki-senpai, my heart would race and my chest would feel tight, but with Nukumizu is different. He just irritates me and I get annoyed because he seems like he doesn't care about things at all. It's just that. It bothers me just a tiny little bit. That's all. Lemon suggests that what Komari described is precisely what it means to care about someone. Komari, however, strongly denies this. Despite her denial, her continued attempts to grow closer to Nukumizu suggest she is exploring what her feelings truly mean. If Komari saw Nukumizu purely as a friend, she wouldn't persist in deepening their relationship. Her later attempts to initiate physical contact support this interpretation. From Nukumizu's perspective, things are more ambiguous. At this stage, it's difficult to figure out his feelings toward Komari or any of the heroines. In this genre, the protagonist's emotions are often revealed only at the story conclusion, if at all. However, there are few intriguing moments worth noting. Take Komari's birthday for instance. While no one else knew about it, Nukumizu somehow did. It's unclear how he found out, but he took her aside during a celebratory moment and gave her a gift. The choice of a gift, a keychain with a star sand, raises questions. During a date with Lemon, Nukumizu noticed her interest in a similar keychain and heard her recount a childhood memory involving it. For him to then give Komari this gift seems odd, especially since it's something tied to a date with another girl. Was this thoughtless choice or something more significant? The author provides no explanation. Maybe this item will be used in some way later. Another curious moment occurs after Komari bandages Nukumizu's finger. Back at home, he notices the band-aid and reflects. As I jotted down the idea in my notebook, the band-aid wrapped around my index finger caught my eye. Komari told me to replace it, but I've left it as it is, for some reason. I gazed at my finger dazedly. Nukumizu, typically rational, doesn't understand his own action here. Why didn't he change the band-aid as instructed? Maybe this uncharacteristic behavior hints at something deeper, even if he himself isn't aware of it. Kaju's statements from 3rd volume also provide an interesting lens. Onisama is very kind, that's why he may be attracted to a protection-seeking girl. Onisama will slowly cultivate their relationship after meeting someone sincerely considerate of him. Komari fits this description perfectly. The subtle hints and deliberate pacing of the relationships suggest the author is laying groundwork for something significant. Unlike the other heroines, Komari's moments with Nukumizu often occur in the background, woven between major events. For example, the romantic date with Lemon includes hand-holding and scenic view of the ocean. The end of volume 7 includes a scene of the almost kiss with Riko and Yanami's dress being taken off by Nukumizu, while Komari's moments such as receiving the Starsun's keychain or being patted on the head are understated and easy to overlook. This deliberate framing suggests the author may be building toward a deeper connection that won't be revealed until later. Imagine if Nukumizu's story ends with him forming a closer relationship with one of the main heroines. If the choice of the partner were based only on the final events, the whole story would feel pretty shallow. Instead, there could be subtle hints scattered earlier to show a bond developing. I'm not saying this is definitely what's happening, I could be wrong. There are similar hints for the other heroines too, but I think the ones about Komari are the most subtle and open to interpretation. A lot will depend on where the story goes in the future books, so we'll just have to wait and see. I think that the arrival of a new club member will significantly intensify the competition and push the girls to take action. To wrap things up, even though it might sound like a huge deal to me, I just hope the author finishes the story in a satisfying way. I'm optimistic because the story reminds me of the other great ones, like Tomozaki-kun, Oosugiru, or even Konosuba. Nuku doesn't have to end up with Komari for me to be happy. I just wanted to share my predictions about the possible relationship based on the clues I've noticed. Hopefully someone found this interesting. Have a great day.